Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the August 7th, 2024 Plastow Planning Board meeting. I'm going to open the meeting at 6:33. Charlene, if you could take roll call, please. Thank you.
Richard Anthony.
Here.
Karen Robinson.
Here.
Laurie Millette.
Excused.
Tim Moore.
Here.
Tom Alberti.
Here.
Dan Kane.
Here.
Nolan Pelletier.
Here.
Bill Coy.
Yeah.
Jada Roach. Here.
All right. That said, if you haven't already, please take a.
Just moving here so that everybody has the mic.
All right. Excellent. Welcome back, Tom. Tom Alberti will be joining us. All right, if you haven't already, please take a minute, review the minutes, and then we'll.
I'll move we accept the minutes.
Second it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right, so just one bit of housekeeping. I'm going to appoint Dan Kane as a voting member tonight in Laurie Millette's absence. Okay. All right. Dan, you're a voting member tonight.
Okay.
All right, so, all right, again, the motion to accept the minutes, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right, so 5-0-0. All right. All right, that brings us to Prime Wetlands presentation. Tim, is there a presentation that needs to be run or advanced, or do you want to refer to?
Yeah. It's,
Right there. Yep. Okay. Yep. Finally.
new microphone here. So this presentation, we've probably made 4 or 5 times over the last couple of years. But we do want to reconsider what we want to do with prime wetlands. So this kind of be an update, bring everybody back up to speed. So the presentation was originally done by Mark West of West Environmental. These are really his slides.
Tim, can I just ask one thing before you go on this? If you could, just for purposes of just sort of generically what we're talking about in terms of what prime wetlands are, why we might want to do it, if that's not covered in here.
Slides will show that.
Okay.
So what, how do I get to the next slide here? Just guess that will do it. So the first phase of looking at prime wetlands is to evaluate the wetlands themselves. And so this phase 1 does this inventory consisting of minimum of all wetlands over 2 acres in size that can be identified on the National Wetlands Inventory, the NWI maps. It cannot consist of a water body only. Aerial photo interpretation of targeted wetlands from the National Wetlands Inventory maps. Includes field verification from public access points. Includes wetlands that narrow to 50 feet must be separated. So again, have a long string of wetlands. So So this is the National Wetlands Inventory Map. Pretty large scale, not a lot of detail you can get from this, but it is an available resource. So you can see in Plastow, there's only a few large areas of wetlands, but they are kind of scattered throughout the town, with a lot of them in the Little River watershed, which we'll see in a minute. The wetland mapping through aerial photo was done a few years ago with this LiDAR map interpretation. The LiDAR is a very high definition aerial photography. And this particular section shows the wetlands, which we've identified numbers 22, 15, and 16. So this is a little bigger scale, and you can see the blue lines indicate the wetlands boundaries. For 4 wetlands are shown in this particular section of Plastow.
If you could
Where
just
is
speak
that
up.
again, Tim? Where's 22 again?
Pardon?
Where is
22 is
22?
Oh,
Where is it
Well,
geographically in town?
go back to the first map.
Oh.
It's the upper,
I don't know. All right, how do I go back?
Sorry.
It's up behind Park.
near the top.
So it's behind Park, you said?
Yeah, it's up the top there. Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, isn't it right up there?
Okay, so
What's off Sweet Hill Road, right?
so you asked where wetland 22,
That's east of Greenfield,
22, yeah, it sits in the,
near
Yeah.
108 Newton.
yep,
Okay.
It's 108.
because that's 108 coming up the right.
yep, so slicing through the lower left corner, I think that must be Sweet Hill Road.
Sweet Hill Road. Yep.
Yeah, it is.
And then
Yeah, I see it now. Yeah.
wetlands 20, 21A, 21B. Those would be through Greenfield Estates.
Yeah.
It's over on the other, other side.
And the road above that is not yet completed. That's the, I don't know what the name of it is. It's Ron Brown's development. It's
Yeah. Well, he's
been in progress.
he very well may have dug.
Yeah.
He's over there tinkering every day, all day long.
Yeah.
Moving dirt.
Just moving the dirt. Exactly.
Yeah, let's continue with prime wetlands. So the wetland evaluation is done in the field, with field data collection with photo documentation. It's conducting a functional assessment using New Hampshire method. Identify prime wetland candidates that must have at least 4 primary functions, one of which must be wildlife habitat. Then here are the functions: groundwater recharge, discharge, flood storage, sediment trapping, nutrient trapping, retention and transformation, production, export, shoreline anchoring, ecological integrity, and fish and aquatic habitat. Some of the wetland values that were looked at: water-based recreation, education potential, noteworthiness, scenic quality. And these are state criteria. This map is the aquifer map. So you can see quite a lot of Plastow is under an aquifer,
Yep.
but it's not a very high value aquifer, less than 2,000 square feet per day of transmissivity, which transmissivity is a mention of a quantity of water that's moving in these aquifers. So we're all pretty low value, which
Is that one aquifer, or is that aquifer, is it more than one aquifer that we have operating there, or at least,
um,
You're asking if it's continuous or?
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's all. I mean, you can see most of Plastow is all that one big aquifer. There's a few smaller sections, but yeah, it's all one. So another map to look at was the 100-year floodplain map. This is, and so not a lot of area in Plastow is in the 100-year floodplain map. A few exceptions, a few small pieces. This map is the Wildlife Action Plan. Again, this is a state-generated map. It's a little tough to read, even when you have the full-size map in front of you. But the legend has various types of wildlife that have been known to be in the areas on the map. So.
Yeah, sand and gravel.
Yeah, this is Wildlife Action Tier Plan. Sorry, I don't remember exactly what the tiers indicate. Sorry about that. So I'll go back and look at exactly what that is. But you can see in the upper left part of the map, that's the town forest. So that has pretty significant wildlife. And sort of on the other side, across the Old County Road, where where recreation area is, Mount Misery area, that's another place with significant wildlife. So that's primarily those have been conservation areas. So wildlife has had a chance to kind of stabilize there. And on the Kingston border, it's another conservation area as well. So I think that accounts for the wildlife intensity there. And most of Plastow has been developed, so you don't see a lot of concentration of wildlife.
That's where the warehouse is.
And this is the Little River watershed, which is mostly of Plastow. So everything in the yellow is the watershed. That all drains to Little River, which, as you know, extends into Atkinson and makes its way to Haverhill and the Merrimack River.
Oops, sorry. Ignore that. It's okay.
So these just examples of various functions. So this one shows the sediment shoreline stabilization. So this one, the wildlife habitat.
Now, where is that?
Upper portion of Little River. I would guess this is the west of Route 125, close to the Kingston border.
Okay, close to Kingston, yep, okay. Okay.
Bryant Brook. Lower portion of Little River. Can barely see the water course, but it's kind of on the lower portion of the picture. So again, another kind of eye test, at least from looking at it, that's a slide. But this is a result of Mark West's evaluation. So the wetland numbers are the numbers that you see on the left-hand column. The size in acres is the next column. And then you have these a dozen or so areas that were evaluated, from ecological integrity all the way out to wildlife habitat. Now, the numbers that are there sort of Mark's way of coding the things. So, and they're not equivalent. So, number 5 shown in ecological integrity doesn't carry the same weight, say, as number 5 in educational potential. So you can't just add the numbers up and have anything that makes too much sense. But needless to say, a lot goes into the evaluation of wetlands. So this slide goes back to Richard's question at the beginning: what is a prime wetland? The RSA defines a prime wetland as jurisdictional wetland that, because of their size, unspoiled character, fragile condition, or other relevant factors, makes them substantially significant. And the 703 is Department of Environmental Services water standards, applicable statutory standards. The requirements that are established for a prime wetland. Number 1, they need to be at least 2 acres in size. Number 2, not to consist of a water body only. Number 3, have at least 4 primary wetland functions, one of which must be wildlife habitat. Number 4, to be at least 50 feet wide at its narrowest point. And the last phase, phase 3, prime wetland designation. Prepare a final report, a final wetland evaluation and designation report. Prepare prime wetland boundary tax maps. Notify all abutters to prime wetlands. Prepare and pass warrant article, town vote, and submit the final package to New Hampshire DES. So the first 2 are done. If we want to go forward with prime wetlands, then we would have to notify abutters. We did that last year, but to have a year-old notification is, that's not acceptable. So we would need to notify abutters again. Prepare and pass the warrant article. I think the warrant article we did would have proposed for last year is adequate, so we'd probably just reuse that. Then we'd be looking at a March 2025 town meeting vote if we decide to go forward. And then when Mark West would submit the final package to New Hampshire DES. So the final result, we had 21 wetlands, 8 were over 20 acres in size. The largest wetland was 52 acres. 9 wetlands were between 10 and 20 acres. 4 were under 10. Combined acreage was 385.9 acres, or about 5.6% of the total town acreage.
Hey, Tim, can I ask a quick question? So the final package that goes to NHDES, can that be changed by them after the town votes on it?
No.
Okay,
Um,
so we wouldn't have to then, if they did, we wouldn't have to take it back and
Back again.
the body would have to revote?
No. I guess what could potentially happen is DES could say, no, you screwed up this area shown as number XX, does not meet the criteria. So I guess they could potentially remove wetlands from prime designation, but they certainly couldn't add to it.
Okay.
So the two key components about this is one is to accept the designation, right? That make it official that we did all these areas that we've designated are quote unquote prime wetlands. And then part two of that is what does that mean for the property and abutting properties regarding
Butters.
development, use, and things like that, correct? Is that because then now that after being designated as prime wetlands, then there becomes restrictions or
Well,
Tax.
from a property point of view, wetland is wetland. So there's a buffer. If it's designated as a prime wetland, it might have a larger buffer. But there's, other than that, there's no, if you're going to develop next to a prime wetland, there's a couple extra steps that you need to take to ensure the integrity of the wetland.
Tim, when you conducted your, last year, the public hearing, what was sort of the gist of some of the complaints or some of was it just people didn't understand it, or that there was a concern that there'd be sort of a loss of use a substantial loss of use of a property for some impacted residents?
Yeah, I would say the primary, I'll call it a complaint, was an additional loss of use of property.
Loss of property.
So for some properties, very insignificant. For others, it would have been have a major impact.
Now, did anyone talk about what the remedy would be, for something like that? I mean, I know that I have designated wetland on my property, and it might be like I don't know, like a 15% abatement or something like that, or
Well, you do you do already. If there are wetlands, I'm not sure about wetland buffers. But if your land does have wetlands, I think you automatically get a reduction because you can't use that portion of the property. How much that amounts to, or what the rules are regarding that, I don't know offhand.
I was at the public hearing, I don't know when you were there as well. It seemed to me, correct me if I'm wrong, Nolan, and I'm sure you will. You should. But it seemed to me like the major arguments I was hearing was really the setback. People looking at it from here, they're like, okay, if I want to do a little addition on the back of my house, I can't now because the setback allows me, I can't go out like 10 feet.
10
because
feet,
It puts
right.
almost right up against my house. Would you say the one that was probably a while?
I would say it was pretty much the primary issue with everyone that was there that evening. The feeling that I got was that people definitely want to protect the wetlands, but they also want to be able to use their property, and that even within the existing setbacks, it could be challenging. So adding to them would just make it more difficult.
Right, I think that's really it in a nutshell. Everybody wants to get wetlands, but if it prohibits someone from adding an addition, expansion, whatever.
Was that sentiment scattered around town at different prime wetland locations, or was it sort of more of an issue at a certain location? It was.
Yeah, I would say it was
That was all through town.
widespread. Yeah.
Like I could say personally, the setback was going to be on the street at my house because I bought wetlands and it was going to go right up to the edge of the street, the buffer. I wouldn't have been able to do
You have to
anything on my
vacate
property.
your house.
Yeah. So, like it's very, it will affect people that abut
Do,
wetlands.
do we consider a quote unquote grandfather clause for existing properties versus new development? I don't know where you draw the line, but
Well, excuse me. Grandfathering is, you have to be, not everything is grandfathered. So things that we typically run into a grandfather situation in the planning board is someone had maybe a small business, an auto repair shop. It's now in a residential zone, which if it was a new development, that auto body shop would not be permitted. It's not a permitted use. But because it's existing, it is grandfathered, which means as you pass zoning, you can't. You can pass zoning, but it only applies for new development. So you can't pass zoning and then expect everyone to, eliminate their business because it's no longer
An example like Prime, like the building that's in the Prime gas station that has businesses underneath, and then I think there are apartments up on top.
Yeah.
That's an example of something that was grandfathered.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to think of what would be something that protects the wetlands, which I think majority of the town would say is a good thing, versus impacting individuals from developing their property
Yeah. So
or using their property.
what would be grandfathered? Sorry. If a larger buffer gets approved, which would, in a new development, either disallow or force you to do a smaller development, your existing development is always grandfathered. So you might not be able to expand as much as you wanted, but your existing development would always be grandfathered.
Nolan, you had something that you wanted to say.
I understand if you don't know, this is kind of off the cuff question, but how much of this is already developed? How much is, I should probably ask, how much is developable? Like how much, is there any land that is touching that we can develop that would be an issue? Or is most of this, like you said, a lot of it is on conservation. So that's kind of protected in its own essence. But there's existing properties, but are there other areas that can be built on that we need to be concerned about, or is it not really an issue in that aspect?
Good question, and I don't really know the answer to that.
Okay.
Anything good going in, say, look, here's your setback, right?
Well, yes, but
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
if we
but-
have existing setbacks and there's not that much developed, then I don't see it as a large impact. And I think anything that's going to be going into those new lots is going to be up for review. And we already have existing setbacks for wetlands, so they would already be, they would have to adhere to those. So I'm not saying it's a non-issue, but depending on, if you told me, oh, there's so many acres that are abutting this and it could be, they could build a huge subdivision, that might impact it. Or if it's already kind of landlocked or people are already existing there, I don't see it as personally as much of an issue.
Yeah, I think what I was thinking about was from a grandfather's standpoint. Jay's saying the buffer would be to his road, which clearly we're not going to say you got to get out of your house. But under the old rules, he might be able to also put a shed in back, and under the new rules, he can't put a shed in anymore, right? So that's what I was kind of saying. Like, now I think that's the concern of the people who do own land where the setback becomes greater, is they suddenly can't put a shed or a pool or something that they would have been thinking about. How do you stop the extended buffer from impacting them for future uses on their own current land? Because there really isn't parcels of land that communities are going to go in at this point in time. It's just going to be select little lots. Who knows where else?
Yeah. So I'm just, so these are the wetland IDs, just an arbitrary number of the size in acres. So this slide, you can, it's a little hard to make out, but if there's a faint blue wetlands boundary, you probably can't see that on the projection. It's hard to read even up close. But these are the wetland maps, which are online on the website.
Where are they online on the website?
Also, what's that?
Where are they online on the website?
Think you go to Conservation Commission.
Right. Conservation.
One of the items listed there is prime wetland or prime wetland maps.
Yeah, that's where they are. I looked at them right before I came.
So this is a sample, closer detail, and here you can see the wetland outline. And that
Is there a variance avenue that'd be open to somebody? Let's say Jay all of a sudden can't put a shed in. Can he go get a variance or something to have some sort of relief from the?
Yeah, our
Facts.
our wetlands and ordinance, if you have a project that
Yeah.
is proposed to encroach in the buffers, you can apply for a conditional use permit rather than a variance. So we made that change half dozen years ago, I think.
So that comes before the planning board.
It comes before the planning
Oh,
board.
okay.
Now, if it's a single lot, which normally does not come before the planning board, it's up to the building inspector to make sure that all of the zoning is met and so forth. You would still need a conditional use permit, but the application would come from the building inspector rather than the planning board. But the same procedure to get relief. There's another, just a different wetlands map.
So on that public meeting, Bill, was the main issue, like today I can put a shed in this spot, tomorrow if this passes, I won't be able to, I'll have to get a CUP,
Right.
and there's a chance I get denied.
Right, and some, there are some you could have put an addition on, now they can't.
Yeah, gotcha.
You know, so it's all of them, those things, you know, some of them.
Yeah.
Septic
Keep
systems.
it property, right?
Yeah, septics.
That was another concern that was brought up.
Yeah, which I get both sides, right? You need a septic, but you don't want it in the wetlands.
So that kind of keeps us from, we can't change any zoning or anything like that either.
Yep. So these are the DES prime wetland rules. An applicant for a project in the prime wetlands or buffer shall submit a functional assessment and impact analysis to demonstrate by clear and convincing evidence that the proposed project, either alone or in conjunction with other human activity, will not result in a significant net loss of any of the values set forth in the RSA 48281, which defines the prime wetland.
All right, so they would just have to be able to, let's say, under the scenario where you have a septic or something like that, you would just be able to have to make I mean, given the fact that some wetlands are actually used for, having septic leach into them.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just,
No, I'm just saying that, something specific like we heard septic being mentioned as being somehow that may be impacted by, a wetland buffer like this.
It was a more concern of someone, I don't remember, it was like lot size where they had existing. And then if they needed to replace it, it would fall within that. It would not now with the existing buffer, but with the extension of the buffer, they could not put it where it essentially needs to be. And then they did say that, same thing, you could come for a variance, but I mean, that's also not a guarantee.
Some places, there's only one place we can put the septic.
Right,
Sometimes you have no
exactly.
choice, it has to go.
Mm-mm.
Well, I think that would be something that, like that rule about prime wetlands, it says an applicant has to basically say, I'm not going to hurt the wetlands, but it doesn't take into account the impact on the homeowner or the property owner, right? And to your point, if septic can only go in one spot, then you'd want to say there's a hardship if we can't
Right.
put it there. So,
yeah, nobody's looking to do that. For new developments, if they have lots defined where one lot doesn't meet the setback requirements, then the remedy there is don't have so many lots.
yeah, okay with that.
So, you have to, usually have to evaluate these things in terms of new construction versus what's existing.
Right.
I mean, we're all residents. We drink the same groundwater. So, but we all have lives to live. We certainly can't tell somebody that if their septic system needs to be replaced, they have to tear down the house and move somewhere else because they can't meet the buffer requirement. I mean, that would be crazy. So, and we're certainly not proposing that.
Try the variance.
Right.
So these are some more of the prime wetland rules. I think we need to read through them. They're in the handout.
Just to reiterate again, I mean, I know you covered it, but, so steps going forward, what is it that we want to, I mean, we're going to use the same, for all intents and purposes, the same language on the warrant, that hasn't
Yeah,
substantially
which is
changed.
pretty simple language. I mean, there's no, I think it pretty much says, shall the town approve the wetlands according to the wetland maps or
Okay.
whatever. I mean, it's not a long, complicated warrant that has buffer sizes and exceptions and so forth. It's a short paragraph.
Now, has it been any thought
Maybe.
shortening the setback? Not have it as much as it is now, because that might help a few homes.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about this couple times at the Conservation Commission. And I think we pretty much agreed that we'd be willing to, or it would make sense to reduce the buffer from 125 feet to 100. And the limited use buffer to 75. The other things that we talked about, this chart that's shown is this is what our current zoning is. So this is where we would have to make a change in zoning. Right now, the parking and structure setback, is 125, like we said. Conservation Commission think is agreeable that maybe 100 feet makes more sense. The other thing we talked about is should we or could we, well, we could, I guess, if we wanted to, make that different for commercial versus residential use. So maybe for residential use, the setback would be 75, which it is currently for wetlands. You can see wetlands greater than 3,000 square feet. The structure setback is 75 feet. Then commercial commercial industrial uses would be 100. So the commercial industrial uses typically would have a larger impact on the wetlands than a residential use. So there is some justification for that. So those are, considerations that we would working with the planning board to determine what those changes in the buffers are.
So what do we do? We vote?
When do you anticipate
I'm
doing a
sorry.
public hearing for this?
Right.
Yeah, just,
When does it have to be submitted by?
Right.
Public hearing, obviously, the butters would have to be notified. This is what Concom wants to try again.
Yeah. So the notification for abutters for prime wetlands is 30 days before the public hearing. And
yeah.
Unfortunately, you're running up against the timeline. It's bumping up against it.
yeah. So we also potentially need to change the zoning, so we'd have to look at the zoning calendar.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
So, I mean, the good news is it doesn't have to be exactly 30 days. It has to be at least 30 days.
At least 30 days.
But it doesn't, I mean, you don't want to push it too far back because then you have the potential for changes of ownership. So the abutter list could change if it's, in other words, I mean, if we had the public hearing scheduled for tomorrow, say,
Right.
pick an example, then there's, 4 months between then and the, town meeting. So, so anyway, I mean, it has to be at least 30 days, but you don't want to have it too far back. So, nor do I think we want to have the public hearing for the wetlands scheduled one day and then the public hearing on the zoning change, if that's what route we're going to take, on a different date. Because if we do that, I'm going to be sick both of those days. Just
Well, we would just package them both together. So they're
Right.
all together.
well, yes, right.
That's what you
yeah.
gotta do, right.
So that means there's going to probably be some kind of a sweet spot in the scheduling of the public hearing.
Right.
Because, just like we don't have public hearings on zoning changes in September, they have to be within, so many days of the town meeting. So somewhere in December, early December timeframe, would probably be the date to do public hearing on the wetlands, as well as any changes to the,
Well, what's, the earliest we could have a public hearing is what, 120 days from
Right.
town meeting, right? Going back?
it's some number like that, Dan. I'm not sure the exact
I'm
date.
not,
Yeah.
it's like I misremembered, I read it somewhere, but I thought it was
Back
that.
to December.
Yeah,
Get back to December.
so that would put us sometime into November, actually.
Yeah, you could do November, right.
Stuff too, right?
Yeah, no, because,
The whole week of Thanksgiving.
Yep.
All of the,
That's why I said
When
December.
do we typically do our public hearings for our warrant articles? First week of December?
December. It's in December.
We try to, right?
we,
Yeah.
Yes.
They-
we try.
They-
But this,
they run-
this one probably needs its own because of the potential. If people came out last time,
Planning.
and I think the messaging has to be, there's got to be a good discussion. Otherwise, the vocal minority will come out with torches and pitchforks, tell everybody that we're going to take everybody's land and that we're going to
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a problem with
overreach
that.
by government.
If people want to come in and,
Yeah.
just
Just
have a
saying.
robust, dialogue, I have no
Get
problem
people
with that.
riled up with,
Last year,
yeah,
people will get
last year we,
riled up without a lot of information and.
Yeah.
you know how that
last year we
goes.
held the public hearing on December 7th.
December 7th?
On December 7th, it was Pearl Harbor Day, which was,
Yes.
boy, I remember that.
It is.
Particular,
how many buttons
partic-
we get? How many hundreds of buttons?
400.
there was
400, is
over
it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was
400. So with a reduction in the size of the buffer, probably a few of those will drop out. I don't think a lot will, but a few probably would.
Yeah.
But-
If they saw what their line was.
Still, I mean, we're talking a significant number.
All right, December 7th, is what you're going to have to do.
Post office. Let us know.
Yeah, the November meetings are Wednesday, November 6th, and Wednesday, November 20th, and then December 4th and December 18th.
You're saying it's December 7th, maybe, for the public hearing?
December 4th, Tom?
4th is a Wednesday.
Yeah. So, yeah, why don't we try to shoot?
I think the date, I think that's the one, the first one.
December 4th?
I think you're right.
Yeah.
All right.
So we
We could
would,
just sort of back engineer off that,
so we try to do two things on that date. One is the public hearing for the prime.
One sec. Oh, okay. All right. Do you want to just
Who's
quick,
gonna be
do you
on?
just want to quickly go over what you said your quick hits are, and then we can,
Yeah.
and you can get Jen up on the screen there.
All right, so,
One sec. Yeah, Jen's doing a Zoom. So final thoughts, December 4th, number of things that we need to do.
December 4th hearing.
One thing that may be worth it is having information for everyone before you go to the public hearing. It doesn't hurt to over-communicate something like this.
No.
Because it doesn't impact me, but everyone who it's going to impact. You have plenty of hours and have a chance to get as much information as they need.
Have a couple of them.
I think that's a good idea. It certainly cannot hurt.
No, you have information like maybe sometime in October.
Yep.
Independent,
That's a bad idea.
independent of the board, right? Who leads that and where? Like at the library?
No, you can do it at the library, it might make the most sense, because you don't know how many folks you can.
Are we leading that or is
Yeah,
Concom
who's leading it?
I would think Concom
We'd be there, we would be there in solidarity with you, though.
We can speak, well, Tim can as well, to the zoning portion of
Well,
it.
that's what I was going to say.
True.
I mean, I think it's a great idea, but I also think that unless people are getting the town emails, they're not going to know. A lot of the people that showed up to that meeting just showed up because they got an envelope in the mail.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
You gotta try.
Well, that's the other key thing is there needs to be communication that's sent out from the town.
You gotta have
Regularly.
Some kind
All
of
right, so
communication.
target
sent
December
out.
4th, maybe an informational of some kind in October, spearheaded tentatively, maybe by Conservation Commission, or maybe jointly with
How much
elements
did
of
the
planning
mailing
board.
cost? Because if you,
I think you should do the mailing.
Yeah.
it's not cheap.
Yeah, so,
It's not, but what you could do for the others is just maybe possibly just send it out regular posting.
Yeah.
For the informational, right.
for
Right, yes,
information,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
for the,
Yes.
Will
for
the
the
new
public,
library sign be
Yeah,
up by
the
then?
information with it.
The library sign's already up.
Oh, is it? I mean, yeah, not the library, yeah, the new sign here. Is it gonna be up by then?
All right,
In
are we,
September.
do we need to, like, is Jen going to call in, or do we need to?
Perfect.
Okay,
Okay.
We get it on the new sign.
all right, so,
yeah, so, there's only just a couple of slides left.
okay.
In the table that had the buffers in it, there was that limited use buffer. The next couple of slides just list those permitted uses in the, as a limited use. Whoop, so.
Uses, but what
So
about
that's
permitted
pretty
uses?
much the presentation.
All right. Thank you. No, thank you, Tim. But like I said,
Tim.
I like the idea of an October informational,
October informational, and then
Right.
do the December.
and
Don't
then
forget that
targeting
one, too.
December 4th.
Yep.
For those,
And if we could do that in the mail too. Mailings they get.
sounds good.
Yep, somebody asked about the cost. I don't know exactly the cost of sending for the public hearing, it has to be sent out registered mail. So you figure 400 abutters at about $8 a piece for a registered mail. It's
How
a
can we do
significant
that?
chunk of money.
Yeah.
32.
So we took that out of the conservation fund last year, and we presumably
Take it
do
out
the
of our
same,
fund?
same this year.
We do it
Right.
out of our
Well, I
fund?
mean, we don't have any discretion. It has to go out, registered mail, right?
It's gotta
So,
go out, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
right.
All right, thanks.
All right, next on the agenda. All right, is that?
Thank you, Tim.
All right, is Jen, are you there? Or do we have to do anything like call or? Let me see. Let me just. No. All right. Answering
Does it
this.
seem like we should see Jen in her own?
Yeah.
I don't know this format, Google Meets.
No.
Or that.
I thought it was canceled.
What's that?
I don't know.
I thought it was
You might need to
canceled.
call Frank.
No. Oh, that's.
Sorry.
She may have hung up though, too. Might press it, let her know to call back.
Hey, what are we supposed to do to get this Zoom
Good
thing
music
started?
this week.
Just sent her an email saying that she should be able to log into the meeting, so I'm just waiting
Okay,
a reply to her.
okay, all right. All right, so just hang tight until she logs in?
Yep.
All right, sounds good. So we're just waiting for her to log in right now, I guess. Last minute additions then while we're waiting, Tim?
Thank you very much, Tim,
Right.
for the report.
All right, so we're just waiting to do a presentation for a housing opportunity grant, next funding round. Just waiting for Jen Rowden, land use manager from our RPC, to do the presentation. All right, well, while we're waiting, maybe we could just revisit the question of formally setting up various subcommittees. The planning board is empowered to set up whatever subcommittees that we deem, appropriate, working committees, ad hoc committees, and such like that. And our rules and procedures have been reflect that. I did speak with a representative at the New Hampshire Municipal Association, because I guess for the last couple of months there was some debate about how we would go about that. There was talk about whether or not we needed a formal charter that kind of expressed what the committee was, statement of purpose, and then designating who's going to be in it, and then whether or not individuals would have to be sworn in for that subcommittee. The New Hampshire Municipal Association seemed to be pretty emphatic on the fact that if we wanted to, it would just be a matter of motion, a motion to call, create that committee, and then appoint the individuals. And since the individuals here, if it's coming from the planning board, we've already been sworn in as planning board members, it's not necessary to swear them in as being part of a working committee, ad hoc committee or something like that. In the same way that CIP, we have somebody from the planning board goes to CIP, there's not a swearing in process and such. I'm not necessarily adverse if somebody wanted for some reason to have something that memorialized, a standing committee that the planning board had, that if there were to be some sort of a charter that explicitly says what it is, statement of purposes, nothing wrong with that. But for purposes of having, let's say, a working zoning subcommittee that evaluated, let's say, zoning questions as they come in or submitted to the planning board, these individuals would have first crack at it. Maybe there'd be a working committee to do, to work on, let's say, questions of reviewing certain best practices and zoning and such. So I think it makes sense to have, said committee, maybe consisting of 3 people, to just review zoning.
One wasn't there.
Well, there were 2 planning board members that met, so it's not a quorum, so it's a working group of 2 people, all right? It was noticed as if there was a meeting, all right? It was noticed in 2 places, yes. Then you heard incorrect, all right? It was noticed at the library, and it was noticed also in town hall and the bulletin board.
I
So-
saw the notice in both places, Bill.
Yeah.
I mean, Laurie and I met at the library, it was there.
Yeah,
And I saw it in town hall too.
so if it was going to be a working committee that the planning board established, the intent was to provide public notice, have the meeting, minutes taken, and then the product of the committee submitted back to the planning board. All right.
Do subcommittee meetings need to be noticed?
Well, if you have a quorum, if we say that it's going to be a working group of 3 people, 2 people meeting, technically, the subcommittee would have
Everyone
to
wasn't
publicly
there.
notice. And they'd have to conduct it as a public meeting and such, with minutes taken and things like that. So this meeting, I would like to, perhaps, formally establish that subcommittee. All right.
So is that an actual meeting if you didn't have a quorum?
It'd be one, I believe, that you're just not, it'd be a working committee. It'd be like, Bill, if you're holding office hours as a selectman, somebody coming in, it's not a quorum of the Board of Selectmen. If three people came in, then you would have a quorum that would have to be publicly noticed. Right. So if the planning board had 2 people that got together to hash out something, it's not a quorum of the planning board. But what I want to establish, though,
But you
is a
posted,
subcommittee.
you posted a meeting.
It was a debate whether or not there was going to be a subcommittee or not. What seems to be confusing you,
I
Chip?
don't know, it's just confusing. You posted a meeting. And
We've
there
been
were
talking about it for 3 months. It's
2
just-
people
Yeah, it
showed
wasn't-
up and there wasn't 3, so, okay.
It seems
Whatever.
Seems like
I-
you
Well,
to
took
cross
it's
hairs.
not, it's not whatever.
It's just confusing.
Is that we wanted to establish a subcommittee. All right.
All right,
There
so
was a question of
You're
whether or not we.
establishing it now.
Right.
for it.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
If you want it to be a subcommittee, sure.
It should have been done before, so really, any notice of that really shouldn't have happened.
Right.
Until it was said, okay, here's the subject.
Yeah, I think the idea was that we had established it, but in going back and looking at it, there was a lot of back and forth.
That's,
Going back and looking at it, there was a lot of back and forth whether or not it required a motion of the board, if the board could appoint it, or if we could take a consensus of the board. All right, there was a lot of debate on that. But I think in speaking to New Hampshire Municipal Association, they seem to be very emphatic about the fact that, no, you don't have to do any of this charter and re-swearing in individuals and things like that. A simple motion and an appointment is sufficient.
So I guess the other thing to establish is how many members are allowed to be on the board? Can there be more than 2? And then
Or
do
3.
we notice it from here on out once we establish a committee, right?
I think that's what's being envisioned. All right, so that if the zoning subcommittee were to meet, to work on, let's say, some project, and you have 2 or 3 individuals meeting, it would have to be publicly noticed, minutes taken, and then they report back to the board.
the other thing, there's also gonna be some rules around recusals too, right? Cases is the only thing that would benefit somebody. Say if I was on the committee and I was zoning to benefit my property.
I guess
That's the way you stay above.
yeah, I know, but it's a working committee that's not doing anything. They're just merely doing work. It then gets presented to the planning board, and then the planning board is the one that would be voting, choosing to
And
discard
that's where
something or not.
recusal would happen in a vote.
Yeah, I think it should happen right from the.
At the subcommittee?
If I was gonna do something to benefit my property, I might try to push that through. I don't think.
Okay.
How do you determine whether a zoning ordinance affects your property, affects all property?
Affects most
Well,
properties.
sometimes you can, right? If you're writing one, you can say, this is something I'm gonna do.
Or people do that all the time here. People have,
I'm saying, we can have differing opinions.
yeah, no, I'm,
All right, but we all know that recusal, though, is on, I mean, if is a recusal on a particular zoning question that you're working on, or do you have to maybe notice it when you come back to the planning board? Or do you say that you can't work on the subcommittee?
I recuse myself because I'm a buck.
Okay,
I'm just saying, that's gonna be my opinion.
that's fine.
Yeah, I think there's general zoning that impacts
But again, it's a-
everybody,
Everybody, right.
but
Affects everybody.
but there could be very specific zoning or zoning that seems to be
different.
targeted towards a potential could be foreseen as a benefit or or negative to someone's individual property.
Right, so you want to stay away
Yeah,
from.
I don't disagree with that.
conflict of interest,
I don't disagree with that.
Right. But just so we're clear, a subcommittee is being used here as an ad hoc working group. All
Right.
right. The product of which gets presented to the planning board, where the planning board makes decisions, votes on whether or not to move forward or something like that. So in my opinion, if there was something that looked like was benefiting somebody or was it was a conflict of interest, then it's on that individual, if they're a voting member, to recuse themselves. All right. And if there is a voting member that isn't recusing themselves, then, the board can take, more strenuous action where you could turn around and have a sense of, you can vote.
the process for zoning, then if the regularly notice it's being written, it's directly something. That's my opinion.
Oh, okay.
I agree with you,
It's
Bill.
noted. That's good. Good. All right. But like I said, anyone that's going to be voting on something, should recuse themselves in a situation where there's a conflict of interest. I think we all agree on
Conflict of
that.
interest,
And
yes.
if it's something that's egregious where somebody doesn't recuse themselves, then it's
That's it, conflict of interest.
so. All right. With that said, I don't know if we.
Well, and the committees don't necessarily have to be, or the committee, or a committee, doesn't necessarily have to be restricted to zoning. When we had this conversation a few months back, we were talking about master plan, economic development. It wasn't just zoning, it was a
No, I think
broad,
there should be a number of
was a
standing
broad effort.
committees. I think there should be a zoning subcommittee. I think there should be a master plan, subcommittee. I think it makes sense to talk about an economic development subcommittee. I think it makes sense to talk about a town beautification subcommittee. All right, that would address these sorts of things. And where you would have individuals that are not members of the planning board, and it makes sense for them to be on those committees, we would have something where somebody would be, would have to be sworn in.
Then what did the subcommittee work on? The one that just met?
Wasn't a subcommittee, it was two people from the planning board working on zoning questions. And I mean, if you want, Dan, you provided a cover letter actually with the,
Yeah, no, we
Yeah.
just, Laurie and I just gathered a whole bunch of stuff. She had some stuff from prior years.
like
stuff
what,
that-
C2 or something like
Yeah,
that?
and, but she had other stuff. We put it all in a bucket, took a look at the zoning ordinance and came up with, a range of suggestions. And I think it was in the cover letter, it says it basically cast a wide net with the idea of streamlining that down as the planning board discusses them, but was to start wide and narrow everything down.
All right.
When is the planning board going to review that?
Actually, ideally, the information was provided to staff yesterday. All right, I would like to have seen it printed out so that people could have hard copy in front of them. If this subcommittee, once it's established, that information should reside in a digital format on the, huh? I don't know what you're saying. Yeah, I think there was a substantial amount.
Frank just left. Did he indicate if we got Jen or not?
That's a huge amount of work, yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe she's not going to do it.
I don't think so. I mean, why don't you ask the people that were there? If you have questions, we can clear it up.
Right.
Do you have questions, Bill?
I think the subcommittees could be part of the agenda, especially at workshop meetings. Hey, anything new on the subcommittee meetings? And then they just discuss it. If Karen and I are on the master plan subcommittee, we say we're looking at this chapter and we want to update this. And what does the board think?
What subcommittees are we establishing?
Well, I think right now we should do a zoning review subcommittee. I mean, whatever you want to call it.
I think you should do master plan too. I mean, you've
And a
got,
master plan subcommittee.
it definitely got a lot going on there.
I mean, at least we have economic development. We have to talk about the
I
implementation
think the
portion
master
of
plan
the economic development, Tim?
too,
Is that
right
correct?
now.
Yes. All right.
I mean, everything this board does is anchored to the master plan, you know?
So
Exactly.
it drives the planning board, right? It's a master plan.
You've got, you know, we're going to listen to Jen on housing. That's a major issue. And, you know, economic development gets anchored into the master plan. Even what we were talking about, you know, the whole traffic study is is in that master plan. So
This housing is for another
Yeah, you-
thing.
it's a lot of work.
So do we even know if Frank got us? Got us, Jen?
I don't think we need to
I
go
think
another
she's
step
supposed to
further
be calling
than
in.
this grant,
So-
period.
All right, so
Took all our time up last
do
year.
does anyone I'll make the motion to establish a zoning review subcommittee? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second. Any discussion on the subject? Apart from the discussion we already had?
Dan, do you want me to be part of that one?
No? All right. All in favor?
Part of it?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna abstain until I get clarification, but that's okay. That's
Oh, my God.
Which one? What's okay to do?
the subcommittee, don't have charter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
I'll check on
Yeah.
that, that's why I'm abstaining.
That's fine. Yeah.
Because I know on the Energy Committee, when we put together the Community Power Subcommittee, we had to establish a charter for that subcommittee and appoint, we had warrants we had to sign for
Well,
those,
because it's selectmen.
for those folks as well, so.
Yeah, and for the
So
reasons that I just said.
I know it's a different committee,
Yeah.
subcommittee of the selectmen, so.
Yeah.
But
No, they were pretty emphatic, New Hampshire Municipal Association.
Was the energy subcommittee made up of people outside of the Board of Selectmen?
yes,
Is that why it required charters and warrants and so on and so on?
Right.
Potentially.
Give people
So in
access.
terms of ayes, I mean, Tim, you and I?
right,
Aye.
but you guys can appoint
3, 4,
citizens as well.
so 4, 1 abstain, Bill?
401, Bill abstained.
401.
Wouldn't necessarily be bad if on that committee, if the citizen.
Absolutely.
No, absolutely. If, you know, if there were, if, and that would be an instance where someone would have to be sworn in.
I'm not
All right.
saying I'm against the subcommittee, I just wanna.
Oh, I think it makes
No,
sense.
haven't,
But I think opening up to citizens is not a bad idea.
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Like an economic development subcommittee, I think it makes perfect sense. And I'm going to point to, let's say, Wyndham as an example, because they have a standing economic development subcommittee for their planning board. And I believe there are a number of individuals that are not just planning board members, but the New Hampshire, Southern New Hampshire Chamber of Commerce might have a sitting representative on their economic development committee.
Right.
All right. In terms of appointments to that subcommittee, I believe, Dan, appoint you to that
I'm
committee.
fine.
I wanted to.
Do we need to vote on the individuals appointed, or is it enough that the chair appoints them to the committee? All right. All right.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, but right now, for purposes of establishing it right now, I mean, we're obviously
People who
open.
get appointed have to recuse themselves?
All right. So,
No, I think just be sensitive of the nature of the discussions. And if, in my opinion, if subcommittee came back to the board and said, hey, let's just say Karen owned a popcorn business and she wanted to do a new ordinance about popcorn business, then you'd almost think that Karen, we didn't really work on Karen with this one. I don't know. Like, I think that was kind of your thought process, right? But it doesn't mean that we should avoid certain discussions, because I think zoning does affect everybody. It's, yeah, above board.
yeah, and the committee's not doing any work that's binding the planning
No.
board. It's just doing work. It'd be in the same way that,
No, you can work on wording to your benefit.
okay,
That's a piece of it, right? You can
Right.
work so that it's, you know, that's just my only concern.
okay. All right, this,
Are you still there?
so right now, I mean, provisionally, I am 3 people, wanting 3 people on this committee. Dan, would you like to be on the committee?
Sure.
I'd like to-
Visually, Lori, has expressed an interest being on
Yeah,
the
she
subcommittee, and Karen,
And I
you
do.
expressed an
Yep.
interest. Is there anyone else, would you like to be on the committee, Bill? Okay, all right. Tim, would you like to work on said zoning committee or what? Or would you prefer to perhaps lead up a
Master
master
plan.
plan subcommittee?
I'll do that one with you too.
Yeah, I really have too much.
Okay. So provisionally speaking, unless anyone has any, provisionally right now,
I'm
you know,
glad to work
you know,
with you,
we,
Tim.
we can assign more individuals if there are people that are not on the planning board that it makes sense and they express an interest to be on it. Then, we're open to having people assigned. Maybe they want to come on as an alternate too. We have 2 more positions for alternates.
Well, I like the idea of grabbing a citizen,
Right,
how do we do
right.
that? Do we post it on the website? Yeah.
Put it on the website.
Yeah.
That the planning board is looking
Anybody
for
interested in
additional
it?
people to work on zoning subcommittee.
Yeah.
All right, it'll be a working group. It'll be subject to disclosures. Minutes will have to be taken. Public notices will have to
And
be
they'll
done.
have to be sworn in. They'll have
Yeah,
to be.
and
be
they will
sworn
have to
in.
be sworn in.
Yeah, right.
So right now, this subcommittee, unless, I guess consensus-wise, is going to consist right now of Dan Kane, Lori Millette, and Karen Robinson. All right. And then, it'll be part of the agenda items where they periodically present product to the planning board for consideration and during our study sessions. So. All right. I don't know where we're going with this.
Did you call?
Brief timeout.
He was just up here.
Was she supposed to come in at a certain time?
Have we made
No, she was
contact
just,
at all?
oh yeah, she was supposed to always be on Zoom, huh?
I thought she was on there.
Yeah, I forgot. I thought she was
Okay.
going to be here, but she
All
was
right,
be on
could
Zoom.
you just let us know when she does, or we'll just move on with what we have here, okay? All right, bye. All right,
Do you
so,
want to do a master plan one?
all right. Would you like to make a motion?
Like a motion that we form a master plan subcommittee.
Right, I second that motion. Any discussion on the subject? And I guess in terms of
Work with Tim if he wants to do something.
I'd be willing to serve on the master plan committee,
okay. So maybe Tim, Karen, would you like to serve on there?
I'll start with that.
Yeah, it's sort of a meaty place to kind of do zoning, planning board stuff.
No, it's good.
All right, so all in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstained, so what was that, 401? Yeah. All right, so provisionally we'll, with the idea that we can build out that subcommittee, if there are interested individuals that aren't necessarily on the planning board, but would like to be involved in the standing master plan subcommittee, send your interest in, and you can have you sworn in and participate on that subcommittee. So it's going to be Tim, Karen, and Nolan right now. So, and then in the back of your mind, let's just kind of consider. So economic development was something that should be an ongoing consideration. That'll probably segue into the master plan implementation portion of economic development
And potentially zoning.
and zoning. But I think it's economic development is
Economic
sort
can
of
be
is
a little bit
more
away from
is
zoning, too.
broader, and it's not necessarily just about zoning. It might be how to market the town or what's available to us in marketing the
what can
town,
we- Right.
what that means.
Exactly.
All right.
Better businesses.
All right. Anyone else have anything on that subject before we move on? All right. All right. Okay. Does everyone have in front of them? It should be an amendment to Chapter 235 subdivision regulations and proposed amendments to site plan review regulations. Okay.
Was this now?
It should be something where you see a bunch of edits.
Draft like
It
this?
says draft on it. All right, just for full disclosure, I did have this reviewed by Planning Board Counsel. All right, and, so the changes that you see where they're striking things out, I guess what was envisioned here was to sort of build out, the procedure that we have for taking in applications that come before the planning board, specifically in terms of defining what's complete or explicitly saying what is complete. And if we were to move forward with some of these changes, my understanding is that we would have to, if we wanted to move forward with it, we would have to schedule, a public hearing on it. Public hearing would have to be conducted. And then, if the board chooses to adopt these changes, it would adopt it by way of a vote. Again, this is coming from our, the planning board and council.
Yep.
So,
So we're on to duties of the planning board first?
yeah, I submitted, I submitted this. This, again, this came from, sort of a working group, but there was a question as to, in my mind, there was a confusion of roles, and I'm not saying that in a pejorative way. Where you have, let's say, something coming before the board, we're asking, people to speak in the capacity of zoning officer to make a determination. You have something that might be in, let's say, a report that's coming in the voice of an admin, in the way of discussion. All right. And in the sense of being able to just sort of make these things clear, all right, part of our determining whether or not something is complete or not, or if the board is going to accept jurisdiction, in my opinion, I would like to see something explicit coming from a zoning officer that says, this is the rationale that this is zoned, that the application coming before us is zoned appropriately. What's the reason, that it's being deemed appropriate or not appropriate, and just to, cite the specific regulation. All right, and not something that's just sort of, so that would have to be present, I think, in any application that comes before us before we accept jurisdiction. And I think the majority of that,
What do you mean by jurisdiction?
Well, under statute, the planning board, what it does when it accepts an application as complete, it takes jurisdiction over that. That's the term of art in the RSAs, over that site plan or subdivision application.
And that kicks in timelines and things like
Yes.
that.
But you have to accept it as complete first, right?
Yes.
again, just to,
It's like the
no.
chicken and the egg thing.
Well, no,
right?
it's just, Tim, before they used the terminology of saying that something was complete, it was phrased as being accepting jurisdiction of the application, correct?
Yes, when I first started, the term was to accept jurisdiction.
Okay.
And then I don't know. Somewhere along the line, somebody thought jurisdiction was a legal term that applied to courts and lawyers and not planning boards. So they changed the term to accept as complete, which means essentially that enough information was submitted that you can fairly evaluate the project. Not that you can't request more information or there's some clarification or, give and take back and forth, but enough to at least get you started. So it's, I don't know, I think that the term accepting jurisdiction was, of the two terms, the better one, but acceptance complete is the current
Yes, the current terminology.
use. Yeah.
So in terms of our checklist,
So
go on.
the current term is completeness, not jurisdiction.
It's what you're doing when you accept it as complete,
Okay,
because that you're in essence taking it.
all right.
You're taking
I hear
jurisdiction of it.
jurisdiction and complete. I just want to make sure the current term is completeness.
Right, which means we accept jurisdiction of it, and it starts the relevant clocks associated with it.
Now, usually, we've, the same meeting that we accept the plan as complete, the next step is to open the public hearing. But that doesn't have to occur at the same time.
Right.
But there's two things that you have to be
Next meeting.
concerned about. One is the planning board has to take action, do something within 30 days of receipt of the application. So that's part of that requirement is accepting it as complete. That if you do that within 30 days, then you've met that first criteria. The next is 65 days. After you've accepted it's complete, you have 65 days to evaluate the application and either approve it or deny it. Or the third option is the applicant can request an extension. So on complicated projects, sometimes 65 days is just not enough. There's too many issues back and forth, and it's to the applicant's interest usually to request that extension. And we've done that several times for large projects.
So the changes are, the information read is, you want to add that
Correct.
Yep,
unless it's been stricken?
Yes.
Strike through, any of the strike through language? No, this has to go to warrant, right?
Well,
No.
no, this doesn't have to go to the warrant.
no, we're not acting on it tonight, but like I said, this is sort of a proposed change to our
Right, and it's
to our
with advice of
subdivision
counsel.
regulations. And, right, that was the whole point of it. But I think,
is with
but we
counsel.
can still, discuss what it is. I mean, like right here, I could see that something is repeated. That looks like that, like 2 and 3, we could probably, like 3 looks like it's exactly the same as 2.
Right,
Right. But I guess the idea is that, I think, in terms of if something's coming for the planning board and, and we're asking for, whether or not it comports with existing zoning or what, I think it's,
understood that.
that as a board, we would want to specifically see or what it is that the determination of how that comports of zoning. All right. If it's in a particular district, how does the use comport with, the zoning as it is? And it's, yeah. And if that's not present, we're basically saying that that's going to be added to the checklist for, any application coming forward should have that. And then maybe even additionally, if the existing site that's being used, the zoning officer would stipulate that it's currently being used, correctly as zoning envisions, and that you don't have something that's coming before the board. Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't be put in a position, in my opinion, where we're asking to say that, you know, that it's not complete, that it's not, if it's not zoned for something, it should not be entertained, or at least it should be challenged. And, you know, the administrative actions that happen after that is that there's a built-in appeal process where we challenge the ruling. It goes from there, you know, or the applicant remedies the situation because it was brought to light. Yeah, exactly. It's why, you know, and the same thing with the other work product that was produced, is that it would have been nice to have it printed out where you can look at it. Because, I mean, I stare at screens all day and I can't, you know, I mean, it's brutal going through the stuff. I like to have paper in front of me. Yep. So, and again, like I said, that, you know, I did have legal counsel review it.
Yep.
And, you know, the changes and notes that, you know, where stuff's being stricken out, that is legal counsel. So they really didn't make too much of a dramatic edits on this. All right.
No, it's nothing really.
All right.
Did someone's phone just make a weird noise?
My phone might be dying.
My phone was making a weird noise, and I haven't heard in a while, and I think someone else's phone made the same weird noise. I was just curious. Trying to figure out what the heck it was.
All right, again, while we're waiting for this presentation,
You want
Yeah.
to do the other, keep working through the agendas?
yes, that's
She
what we're
jumps in.
gonna.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of, I guess we've been asking, like, I'm looking at old business right now under impact fee methodology. I mean, I think the last couple months I was looking for an update on an RFP for, you know, potentially updating the impact fees. I know that was included in our packets, or at least email wise. There might have been sort of a methodology, the existing methodology, but I don't think that should be holding up a request for proposal that should be going out. I mean, is there any reason, Tim, you think that the two really shouldn't be tied? We should be sending out a request for proposal if possible?
No, I looked at the proposal, the request for proposals, and but I thought that was right on. It's exactly what we wanted. So I would just make a motion to go forward and send out the request.
Oh, geez, okay.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
What's this thing on request?
That's yeah, for the impact fees. We're looking to send out a request for proposal for the impact fees,
Okay.
to be sort of
Are we doing that
reassessed and
now?
updated. We'd like to, yeah. I think, all right, I don't. All right, this is. So you think this is, in your opinion, Tim, this is pretty solid, what it should kind of look like?
Yeah, I thought it. I mean, it was the main point was we were looking for cost estimates, and I think the notice that it says pretty clearly that we can't take any action until March 2025 town meeting. It is in here, so
All right,
yeah.
Yep.
I thought it was all good. Obviously, in red were the, just the date and time, and so we'd have to specify a specific date and time, but, I mean, that would, it's easy enough to do.
And just going through it, I mean, I guess the main challenge is, I mean, is there an organization that's doing it, or is that just, we're going to put it out there? And is there are there specific targeted groups that we're looking at, or that are being made aware of this request for proposal?
I know in the past, the town has hired consultants to do the impact fees, so there are individuals or consultants out there that do it. Yeah.
And the whole year around, you know who's out there.
Right.
All right, so tonight we're just looking to say that we're good with this request for proposal, correct? And we move forward on, moving forward? All right.
Okay.
So I move that we move forward for this request for proposal and impact fee methodology updates. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500. All right. All right. Setting up a bond.
Yep.
All right, I guess for purposes of I'll just read this into the record. All right. On December 6, 2023, the Planning Board conditionally approved an amended site plan for the above noted project. Regarding Bond 190 Plastow Road, J&R Realty Trust. On December 6, 2023, the Planning Board conditionally approved an amended site plan for the above noted project. All conditions of approval were met. The plan was signed and recorded at Rockingham County Registry and Deeds. The contractor for the site work for the project has submitted a bond estimate worksheet attached, which has been reviewed by Keach Nordstrom Associates, Planning Board Review Engineers. K&A has revised the calculations included in the bond estimate worksheet. See attached email from Jeff Quirk. Per Planning Board Regulation 235-1210A, construction bonds, the security for site plans, including amended site plans, shall be the greater amount of 10% of the total improvement cost estimate, or $5,000, amended 06/6/2018. The total amount shown and review of the revised bond estimate worksheet is $251,240. 10% of that number would be $25,124, which is the amount that the bond should be set at per regulation. All right, so staff is recommending that the board vote to set the bond amount for J&R Realty. All right, so I move that the construction bond for J&R Realty Trust project at 190 Plastow Road be set at $25,124. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0 opposed, abstained. All right, 5-0. All right. I just have one additional piece of old business. Tim, you were doing a review of the, was it the subdivision requirements, what, make sure that, where does that stand, do you think?
I have something for the September workshop.
Okay. And so you were just doing it side by side to make sure that everything was
Yep. It's
not in both places?
combining the subdivision site plan into one document.
And so we'd see something maybe like for the September workshop or something like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Anyone else have anything?
No, I think that was it.
So no one has anything. I think we do one last check to see if our Zoom session is going to be on and if don't think it's unreasonable to say. We can reschedule that.
Yeah.
Anything or? Okay, I think then we'll just probably make arrangements to reschedule. All right, thanks, Bye. So we had anticipated having the second part of the Housing Opportunity Grant, the next funding round presentation. There's grant money that would be available for Plastow to evaluate our existing zoning amendments with the idea of, let's say, the intention of somehow facilitating some sort of, housing question. Housing's a big thing right now. Right now, it's, most people that are probably younger than everyone here that has a job is probably not in a position to just go out and be able to buy a house and things like that. So housing is something that's, whether or not we want to engage in the next part of this, of having RPC, evaluate our zoning and see if there's something that can be done that's good for Plastow. I think that's what we should be asking ourselves. It isn't about, let's say, bringing in affordable housing and then whatever narrative is attached to that. I think there's a lot of negative talk to that. It's about what, if there's anything that can be done to facilitate ownership and people living in Plastow by maybe making adjustments to our zoning and such. In principle, I'm not opposed to that. I think that's a conversation that, if we had RPC come in, they could say it in a much more elegant way than I am. But if they can see something that can be done that comports with Plastow's values and our community goals, but at the same time also, making, sort of addressing this issue that, housing is something that's very difficult right now. And people getting into housing is, we probably shouldn't necessarily be making it harder. So if we were to take on this grant proposal, it doesn't obligate us in some way to accepting something. It's just they come in, they do the work, they present the work to us, and then as a board, we decide if we want to implement those things. So, I look forward to that presentation from RPC, and maybe at a later date. So, anyone else have anything on that subject?
This isn't going to be another, like,
See, exactly.
gathering of information. I think all that information has been gathered, hasn't it?
That was the first round. Yeah.
Yep.
Information's been gathered. I believe, my understanding is that the second part is to actually look at our zoning and then to propose in conjunction with what the board, as the elected board, expressing its priorities, if there's something that can be done that would help realize that.
Yeah, they might say
Yeah.
if
Well,
you change
that's
the
what I'm saying.
setbacks or the buffers or zone
Maybe.
it this way, then
Yeah.
you could add more housing there and
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever that means. And if people don't, like what's offered, or if we don't want to move forward on it, then, feel free to say out loud that you don't want to move forward on it. So, yes.
Okay. In my opinion, ever since June, we made it very clear that we would finish our obligation and we would do the first grant. And everybody at that time all agreed that we had completed it and that we were told Plastow has done as much as they can according to that first grant. And there was no, going to be another year of going through this same thing again, trying to push something in. And I thought we made it very clear. And then Victoria left. We had two people working with us, and it was first Sarah, then it was Victoria. And it was ended in June, is how we all stated it at the time, that this next year was going to be working on the master plan. And that included economic development, that included the zoning, that included, what was the other one that we did? Well, I guess the beautifying too, of land stuff. it was not to concentrate and do again another grant that we apparently agreed we weren't going to do this again. So it kind of makes me mad that we're being pushed again into the same situation that we nicely said we were not going to do again. And that we finished the first half and we were told this is all that Plasto can do, to be very honest with you. And we did. We've had some developments come in. No, we haven't done exactly what they wanted, but then they looked at our land. We had it all done. We had the people come and they had checked all the places that could possibly be further development. And it was said that, you know, we really, for our population and our small town, we were not so much in the class of what they're doing now with the housing, continuing it to find as much as they can for workers, anybody that they can, in bigger areas, areas that have the area. We don't have much area left. And that was our point. So we finished and we did it well right to the end. And here we go again. I said, oh my God, they're coming back. And I just don't think, I think there should be a vote, seriously. I just don't get it. Here we go again, another year. We got to work on these other things.
Is
now.
that map available?
What's that?
Is that map available of further development? I would like to overlay that over the wetlands.
Oh, yeah, where is that?
We don't have that here.
So is this just Jen?
Yeah, that
Is this
actually-
just Jen coming in to say,
Same one.
this is phase 2 if you want to participate?
I think
That's correct.
my opinion is
Okay.
it never hurts to listen to something.
Sure.
And if it makes sense, you do it. If it doesn't, we say thank you, no thank you.
Because
It's- it's money to do something that we may benefit from at some point in time.
Correct.
And the hardest thing to get is money.
Correct. It's right. If the money's available now, it's something we know we're gonna need to do.
But the money is told where it goes. That's the problem. And I don't think where the money is going is what our problem is right now.
My opinion is I think it's worth listening to Jen.
I don't mind listening. I don't mind listening.
And then we make
That's
a
fine.
decision from there.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah,
that's what was scheduled tonight, is a listening session. We're gonna hear a pitch,
I
Yeah.
just wanted.
and
to get
then,
my opinion
and
out,
then we
that's
can
all.
make our decision.
I
You
think Karen's points are valid, right? If we say to Jen gives us the pitch and we say, listen, what, even if we come up with some ideas, what can really,
What more?
there's not a whole lot we can do with it. She might say, yeah, this money's better spent in other communities.
I'm always of the opinion it doesn't cost money to listen.
No, go on. No, I'm all for that.
Just an aside, in talking, you know,
No, I was
the
hoping she'd be here
director
tonight.
director at RPC,
Yep.
you know, I did express the aspirationally,
Really need.
aspirationally, that, you know, economic development is sort of the turn that, you know, we were kind of looking to make.
Exactly. I don't want to see this
But-
put off again.
Though there might be money attached to something that's housing right now, language-wise, you know,
And you're
if
going to have to
if-
do them first.
if tangentially, if that allows for us to have conversations about economic development in some way, all right, or access to something that makes sense, you know, from a economic development perspective, that we could make use of, let's say, that grant in some way through a different interpretation of it.
This is phase 2. Same interpretation. Phase 2.
The director of RPC disagrees with you, all right? But my point is that if there was an interpretation that allowed for us to exploit some aspect of a grant, but from an economic development perspective, I said we'd be interested in hearing something like that.
I think we just listen to her
Yes,
and be creative, you know?
yeah. So,
We don't know till we hear.
Bingo.
Yeah, and they do most of the work anyway, so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, do the work, present it to us, and we decide whether or not we
It's
move forward.
free money,
There you go.
just like all the taxpayer dollars spent on
It's
Wasteful.
already being spent.
wasted.
Right,
All you're doing is allocating. It's already gone, you know?
all right.
And if some can come our way for something,
Well, that's what I
You're going to
was
tell us
thinking.
what
Like,
it's going for.
Well-
That's the problem.
we
we don't have to take it then,
yeah, right.
right?
I'm just
You know, and
telling you.
and I guess, but just in terms, that same conversation, like for instance, the Regional Economic Development Committee that's out of Raymond, all right, that came into existence because I forget the name of the area up near the seacoast. That's designated as an economic development area. So there's federal money that's attached to that, that the Regional
That's good.
Development Economic Council
That's fine.
is associated with. All right, so in terms of having a conversation, well, why can't we have that type of a conversation? I think Plastow's unique. We're a border community. We have that 125 corridor that has that nucleus of commercial activity there. You know, I'm thinking, you know, if we look hard enough and we get people to talk creatively about something, why can't we?
Why can't we get a representative for that? Right, not housing, representative for economic development.
I think, you know, I guess what I'm saying is that I would like to, you know,
I'll listen.
robust conversation, maybe something
listen.
comes up with like some nugget of gold of some kind. All right, anyone have anything else? If not, then I close this meeting at 8:24. Thank you.
Thank you.